The snowstorm that night descended like nature's wrath, swallowing everything on the narrow road leading to Ridgewood, a town Alexander Scott never thought he would set foot in. The snow fell thick and heavy, and the wind howled as if it wanted to tear through everything in its path. His luxurious car skidded on the slippery ice before crashing violently into a roadside tree. The clock on the dashboard blinked, marking the passing seconds, while the biting cold seeped through Alexander's thick coat. Pain shot through his arm, and blood trickled from a wound on his forehead. His consciousness faded, but not before he caught a blurry figure running toward him. A gentle voice broke through the chaos. "Hang in there! You're going to be okay! I'm here!" When Alexander woke up, he found himself lying in a modest, small room, the faint scent of antiseptic lingering in the air. He felt the warmth of a pair of hands tending to him, and his gaze settled on her, the woman with striking blue eyes, gentle yet holding deep, unspoken sorrow. She was Amelia Brooks, a volunteer doctor at this humble medical station. Time seemed to slow down in the small town of Ridgewood. Outside the window, snow blanketed the rooftops of the old houses, but inside the tiny treatment room, something else was growing between Amelia and Alexander, an inexplicable connection that words could not define. Amelia cared for him with unwavering dedication, not just with her exceptional medical skills, but with a sincere gentleness rarely found in the fast-paced world he belonged to. Alexander, a CEO accustomed to billion-dollar deals and cold, calculated decisions, found himself drawn to Amelia's simplicity and warmth. His physical wounds were insignificant, but perhaps his heart had never felt so healed. Late-night conversations under the dim glow of the bedside lamp, the crackling of the fireplace, and soft laughter echoing through the cold winter nights outside. Amelia shared stories of her difficult childhood and the reason she chose to abandon everything to be here. He listened, understood, and slowly realized the emptiness in his lavish life. "Why did you choose to stay here, in such a remote place?" Alexander asked, his sharp eyes following her every movement. Amelia smiled softly, her gaze distant. "Because here I don't have to prove myself to anyone. I can do what I love. No pressure, no judgmental eyes." He didn't ask further, but his mind was filled with questions. A woman like Amelia should have belonged to a prestigious hospital where she could shine with her talents, not bury herself in such a desolate place. And yet the warmth between them continued to grow. Welcome, our dear friend, to today's story. Wishing you health and happiness. Please subscribe to the channel and become part of this growing family. The snowstorm that night came like nature's wrath, swallowing everything on the narrow road leading to Ridgewood, a town Alexander Scott never thought he would set foot in. Thick snow fell relentlessly, and the wind howled, determined to tear apart anything in its way. His luxurious car skidded on the slippery ice before crashing violently into a roadside tree. The clock on the dashboard flickered, marking each passing second, while the biting cold seeped through Alexander's thick coat. Pain throbbed in his arm, and blood trickled from a wound on his forehead. As his consciousness faded, he barely managed to see a blurry figure running toward him. A gentle voice pierced through the chaos. "Hold on, you're going to be okay. I'm here." When Alexander woke up, he found himself lying in a modest room, the faint scent of antiseptic filling the air. He felt the warmth of a pair of hands tending to him, and his gaze settled on her, the woman with striking blue eyes, gentle yet filled with deep, unspoken sorrow. She was Amelia Brooks, a volunteer doctor at this small medical station. Time seemed to slow in the quiet town of Ridgewood. Outside the window, snow blanketed the rooftops of the old houses. But inside this tiny treatment room, something else was growing between Amelia and Alexander, an inexplicable connection that words could not define. Amelia cared for him with unwavering dedication, not just with her exceptional medical skills, but with a sincere gentleness rarely found in the fast-paced world he belonged to. Alexander, a CEO accustomed to billion-dollar deals and calculated decisions, found himself drawn to Amelia's simplicity and warmth. His physical wounds were insignificant, but perhaps his heart had never felt so healed. Late-night conversations under the dim glow of the bedside lamp, the crackling fireplace, and soft laughter carried through the cold winter nights outside. Amelia shared stories of her difficult childhood and the reason she chose to leave everything behind to be here. He listened, understood, and slowly realized the emptiness in his lavish life. "Why did you choose to stay here in such a remote place?" Alexander asked, his sharp eyes following her every movement. Amelia smiled softly, her gaze distant. "Because here, I don't have to prove myself to anyone. I can do what I love. No pressure, no judgmental eyes." He didn't ask further, but his mind was filled with questions. A woman like Amelia should have belonged to a prestigious hospital where she could shine with her talents, not bury herself in such a desolate place. And yet the warmth between them continued to grow. Everything seemed too perfect to be true, until the harsh reality struck. One evening, Amelia accidentally found a business card tucked inside Alexander's coat pocket. His name, Alexander Scott, CEO of Scott Medical Innovations, hit her like a crushing blow. She stood frozen for a long moment as memories of the past surged back. Scott Medical was a renowned healthcare corporation, and if he was the CEO, it meant he belonged to a world entirely different from hers. Fear crept into her heart, fear that her past would be exposed, that the media would once again hunt her down like a cornered prey. The following morning, as Alexander watched Amelia quietly preparing medication for her patients, his phone rang. On the other end was Eleanor Whitmore, his fiancée, a loveless engagement arranged by their powerful families for business gains. Her cold, authoritative voice shattered the peaceful atmosphere. "Alexander, your parents have finalized the engagement date. I hope you won't complicate things any further." Amelia, overhearing the conversation, trembled as she set down the medicine bottle, her eyes clouded with disappointment and pain. She had allowed herself to dream too much. Even though she knew she could never belong to his world, she couldn't resist the feelings that had grown in her heart. But now everything was clearer than ever. He was a CEO, engaged to another woman, and he would never belong to her. That night, Amelia sat beside Alexander's bed, watching him sleep. Inside her, a storm raged. She loved him, but she was terrified. She remembered her past, the pain that had once shattered her dreams. She had once been a brilliant surgeon at a top hospital in New York, admired by colleagues and trusted by patients. Her career was soaring, her future promising, and she believed she was born to save lives. But everything changed after one fateful surgery. One day, Amelia performed a complex operation on a highly influential businessman in the financial world. The surgery lasted hours, and despite her utmost efforts, the patient did not survive due to rare complications. The hospital's official report confirmed it was an unavoidable risk and not her direct fault, but the public was unforgiving. The media pounced on the story, turning Amelia into the target of a merciless witch hunt. Sensational headlines branded her as the white coat killer, accusing her of negligence that cost a powerful man his life. The patient's family sued the hospital, public outrage erupted, and judgmental glances from colleagues made her feel like a criminal who could never be forgiven. Amelia was not only dealing with professional pressure, but also relentless attacks from the public. Every time she stepped outside, whispers followed her, and suspicious looks drained her confidence. The voices in her head echoed relentlessly, "You ruined a man's life. A terrible doctor like you doesn't deserve to be in the operating room." The nightmares dragged on, leaving her physically and emotionally exhausted. Gradually, she lost the courage to step into the operating room again. Her once illustrious career crumbled overnight, and she began to believe she was no longer capable of saving lives. She rejected every offer to return to major hospitals and decided to leave New York, where every corner reminded her of failure, leaving it all behind to escape. With a broken heart, Amelia left the bustling city, abandoning everything from her past. She arrived in a small town where no one knew who she was, where she could start over without the pressure of media scrutiny or public judgment. There she chose to become a volunteer doctor, treating impoverished patients who had no access to modern healthcare. Working at the community clinic helped her regain some sense of purpose. Here she no longer faced suspicion, but found simple people who cherished every moment she spent helping them. But deep down, Amelia could never shake off the fear that one day her past would catch up with her and she would once again have to confront those terrifying nightmares. When she met Alexander Scott, Amelia found a flicker of light in her dark world. He wasn't just a patient. He was the only man who seemed to see through the pain hidden within her. But when she discovered he was the CEO of a major corporation and engaged to another woman, all her fears returned. She feared that if the past resurfaced, his powerful family would never accept her. She didn't want the nightmares to return and strip away the peace she had worked so hard to build. And so she had no choice but to leave. She wrote a letter, each word cutting through her heart. Alexander, I'm sorry for leaving without saying goodbye. There is no future for us. You have your path, and I have mine. Forget me, live well, and don't look for me. The next morning when Alexander woke up, Amelia was gone. No trace, no explanation. All that remained was an empty room and an aching void in his heart. Returning to New York, Alexander carried with him a hollow emptiness. He resumed his fast-paced life, business meetings, extravagant parties. Eleanor stood beside him like the perfect shadow, and the engagement date loomed closer with each passing day. Yet deep inside, Amelia's image haunted him. Her gentle smile, her warm gaze, and the long nights they spent sharing their unfinished dreams. During his time at the small Ridgewood clinic, Alexander found himself changing. No longer the powerful CEO with a packed schedule, he became a different man. A man who found rare tranquility in the simplicity of life in this small town. The modest room, the poor but kind-hearted patients, and most of all, Amelia's presence. She made him feel like more than just a businessman. She made him feel human. Amelia was always by his side during his recovery. Each night, when the town fell into silence, they talked for hours about life, about dreams they thought were long lost. She told him about her time as a surgeon in New York, the high-pressure surgeries, the moments spent standing between life and death. But then, her voice faltered when she spoke of the incident that made her walk away from it all. I once thought I could save everyone, that I would become the best doctor, Amelia said quietly, her gaze lost in the falling snow outside the window. But I failed. One mistake, and I lost everything. She stopped there, unwilling to say more. Alexander watched her, recognizing the deep pain hidden in her sad eyes. He wanted to say something, to comfort her, but all he could do was silently take her small hand in his. For the first time, she didn't pull away, allowing him to feel the quiet rhythm of her heartbeat. Slowly, Amelia began to open up more. She laughed when Alexander recounted his struggles in building his business, the days of living in a tiny apartment, surviving on instant noodles, and dreaming of success. You have everything now, Amelia smiled, but there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. And I lost it all. Alexander wanted to argue, but deep down, he understood that Amelia didn't need empty reassurances. What she needed was time and patience. The morning he woke up feeling uneasy, he instinctively reached for Amelia's side of the bed, only to find it empty. A wave of fear swept over him as his eyes landed on a letter resting on the bedside table. He read each word, and an overwhelming sense of emptiness consumed him. He ran outside searching for her, but it was too late. Amelia had left, taking with her a part of his heart that he could never reclaim. Back in New York, everything felt meaningless. The endless meetings, the lavish parties with Eleanor, and the congratulatory words about their upcoming wedding, all of it felt like an elaborate performance he no longer had the energy to play. Beneath his cold CEO facade, he was still a man desperately searching for the woman he couldn't forget. No matter how hard Eleanor tried to pull him back into their world, the void Amelia left within him was impossible to fill. Eleanor wasn't oblivious to Alexander's distant demeanor. She was a smart woman, and it didn't take long for her to notice the emotional chasm growing between them. You can search for her, Eleanor said coldly one evening after yet another extravagant party, but remember, she doesn't belong in our world. Alexander simply looked at Eleanor without responding. Perhaps she was right. Amelia didn't belong to their world of wealth and power, but that didn't mean he could let her go so easily. Amelia, on the other hand, had started over once again. After leaving Ridgewood, she drifted from town to town, working at small community clinics, always keeping a low profile, always looking over her shoulder. She feared the day her past would catch up with her, feared that the man she loved would come searching for answers she wasn't ready to give. Yet in the quiet moments of her solitude, She placed a gentle hand on her growing belly, realizing she was no longer alone. The life inside her was a constant reminder of the man she left behind, of the love she once dared to dream of. And as much as she tried to convince herself that leaving was the right decision, there were nights she lay awake, wondering if Alexander ever thought of her the way she thought of him. In the days that followed, Alexander silently searched for Amelia everywhere. He hired the best detectives, followed every lead, but it was as if she had vanished into thin air. Every time he uncovered a clue, a faded photograph or a scattered medical record, it led to another dead end. Each night he held the letter Amelia had left behind, reading it over and over again, as if searching for a hidden message within the words. She had written that they had no future, but Alexander knew deep down that she still loved him. What he didn't know was that Amelia carried a secret that would change everything, their child, the result of a love she had tried so hard to deny. On the other side, Amelia Brooks left the small town in the early hours of dawn, long before the sun could cast its light over the snow-covered streets. Her small suitcase contained everything she needed for a new life, and every memory of Alexander was carefully packed away, buried deep within her wounded heart. She couldn't let him know the truth. She couldn't allow the past to haunt her once more. Stepping onto the last bus out of town, Amelia had no clear destination in mind. She only knew that she had to leave Alexander, leave the turmoil in her heart, and leave behind the prying eyes of the world. After leaving Ridgewood, Amelia spent the first few months in another small town, where she found work at a remote community clinic with meager pay. Life there was peaceful. No one knew who she was, and no one mentioned the tragic surgery from years ago. However, it was during those early months that Amelia discovered she was pregnant. The realization struck her like a wave, her heart pounding with a mix of joy, fear, and uncertainty. This child was a part of Alexander, a tangible reminder of the love she once dared to believe could overcome all obstacles. But now Amelia felt nothing but isolation and confusion. She wrestled with the decision. Should she tell Alexander or continue to disappear from his life? The haunting memories of her past, of the media frenzy and public scrutiny, made the choice for her. She knew she had to stay away. Each passing day, Amelia found solace in the quiet flutter of life growing inside her, but also lived in constant fear that a single misstep would drag her back into the spotlight. Determined to protect her secret, Amelia kept moving from one town to another, searching for a place where she and her unborn child could be safe from the outside world. She changed her name on medical records, took on short-term jobs at mobile health clinics in rural areas, and avoided forming close relationships. Everywhere she went, there were people who needed her, and Amelia threw herself into her work as a way of atoning for the past. But no matter how hard she tried to move on, the nights were the hardest. Alone in a small rented room, she would sit quietly, her hands resting gently on her growing belly, whispering lullabies to the child she knew she would raise alone. She couldn't stop thinking about Alexander, the man she loved but could never have. As she settled in different places, Amelia's heart was torn. She wanted to be found, but at the same time, she feared it. She knew that if Alexander discovered the truth, his powerful family would never accept her or their child. The world he belonged to, filled with wealth, power, and scrutiny, was no place for the quiet, peaceful life she wanted to give their baby. Each morning, she would wake up before dawn, head to the clinic, and immerse herself in treating patients. She found comfort in the gratitude of the people she helped, in the smiles of the children she vaccinated, and in the quiet satisfaction of knowing she was still doing what she loved. But at night, when the world grew silent, she would let her tears fall freely. No matter how far she ran, Alexander's presence lingered in her thoughts, a ghost of a love she couldn't escape. In a small southern town, Amelia finally found a place she could call home, at least for now. Here, she could continue her work in anonymity, live a quiet life, and prepare to welcome her child into the world. The townspeople saw her as nothing more than a kind-hearted volunteer doctor, and that was exactly how she wanted it. But deep down, Amelia knew the storm was far from over. One day, Alexander would find her, and when he did, he would bring with him all the ghosts of the past she had tried so desperately to bury. In a small southern town, Amelia found a place she could temporarily call home. Here she could quietly continue her work, living in anonymity as an unassuming volunteer doctor, and nurture her child with unconditional love. Yet deep down, she knew that the storm had not truly passed. One day, Alexander would inevitably find her, bringing with him the tempest of the past that she had tried so hard to bury. Now, Alexander Scott, the talented and wealthy CEO, felt like nothing more than a puppet being pulled along by his family's carefully orchestrated plans. His upcoming wedding to Eleanor Whitmore was seen as the perfect alliance to solidify the power between two leading financial and medical technology empires. But deep inside, Alexander's heart did not belong to this marriage. At lavish parties and high-profile media events, Eleanor was always by his side, smiling radiantly, their hands intertwined like the perfect couple. Yet only Alexander knew the truth. This was nothing more than a carefully staged performance to appease the public and their families. His mother, Margaret Scott, a sharp and formidable woman, never ceased her relentless pressure. She believed that this marriage was the key to securing the Scott family's dominance in the medical technology industry. Alexander, you need to understand, to survive in high society, we need strong alliances. Eleanor is the perfect choice. Don't let fleeting emotions jeopardize the future of our empire. Alexander clenched his fists in silence, offering no response. Sometimes he wondered if his family truly cared about his happiness, or if he was merely a pawn in their never-ending game of power. Eleanor, on the other hand, had no illusions. She understood the nature of their arrangement and had no intention of stepping aside. To her, Alexander was the golden ticket that would solidify her family's standing in the financial world. She loved the image they projected in public, loved the success their union would bring, but love itself was absent. "You still haven't forgotten her, have you?" Eleanor asked one evening after they attended a charity event. Alexander turned to face her, his eyes cold and distant like an endless ocean. "I never intended to love you, Eleanor. We both know that." His blunt honesty left Eleanor momentarily speechless, but she wasn't deterred. She knew that once the wedding took place, Alexander would have no way out. Despite the mounting pressure from his family, Alexander had never stopped searching for Amelia. For months, he had exhausted every resource available, hiring private investigators, reaching out to hospitals, and chasing even the faintest leads. Yet Amelia seemed to have vanished from his world. Each time he found a faint trace, it slipped through his fingers before he could grasp it. The investigators reported that Amelia had once worked at a small hospital on the outskirts, but she had left shortly after, leaving no forwarding address. A nurse at the hospital remembered a young woman with sorrowful eyes, deeply dedicated to her patients. Yet no one knew where she had come from or where she had gone. Long nights found Alexander sitting at his desk, staring at old photographs, piecing together fragments of Amelia's life. The sense of loss grew heavier in his chest with each passing day. One night, his closest friend, David Carter, sat beside him, sighing heavily. "You can't go on like this forever, Alex. If she wanted to leave, maybe you should respect her decision." Alexander's gaze remained fixed on a photograph of Amelia tending to patients at a remote clinic, her eyes filled with compassion and hidden sorrow. His voice was low but firm. "I can't let go, David. She's the only person who ever made me feel alive." Eleanor was not the kind of woman who would give up easily. She quickly noticed the emptiness in Alexander's eyes whenever they were together, as if he was searching for someone she could never replace. As the wedding day approached, her impatience and frustration grew stronger. One morning, Eleanor stormed into Alexander's office, tossing a tabloid onto his desk with a bold headline. "Eleanor Whitmore's powerful fiancé. Is he truly faithful?" The article was filled with rumors about Alexander secretly searching for another woman, complete with photos of him discreetly leaving small hospitals and clinics. "What are you doing, Alex?" Eleanor's voice was cold, laced with irritation. "Do you think you can run away from this marriage? The media is watching your every move, and our families won't tolerate any mistakes." Alexander glanced at the paper but remained unfazed. He knew Eleanor had begun using the media as a tool to pressure him, forcing him to accept the reality she wanted. "I don't care about the media, Eleanor. If that's what you want, go ahead." His voice was low yet resolute as he stood up. "But don't expect me to love you." Eleanor clenched her jaw. She couldn't comprehend why a woman like Amelia, a mere volunteer doctor in a small town, could captivate Alexander so deeply. Her frustration grew day by day. She began arranging interviews with the media, appearing frequently at social events alongside Alexander to reinforce the image of their supposed perfect relationship. "Alexander and I share a strong bond," she declared on a television interview with a flawless smile. "We are a couple destined to be together." Alexander remained silent throughout these events, feeling like a prisoner trapped in an inescapable cage of societal expectations. Every word Eleanor uttered only reinforced the sense of entrapment within him. Despite being surrounded by the press, extravagant parties, and work pressures, Alexander couldn't stop thinking about Amelia. Each night, when he returned to his luxurious penthouse, an unbearable emptiness filled his heart. The large bed felt cold and lifeless, and there was no one to share the small yet meaningful moments of life with. He often wondered if Amelia was doing well, if she had found happiness in a place beyond his reach. One evening, standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows of his apartment, gazing out at the dazzling lights of New York City, he whispered to himself, "Where are you, Amelia?" As time passed, Alexander's search remained fruitless. Every trace of Amelia gradually faded away, as if she had never existed in his life. Meanwhile, the pressure from his family escalated. His mother, Margaret, grew increasingly insistent, urging him to sign the wedding documents and finalize the arrangements. He found himself standing at a crossroads between a loveless marriage that would secure power and influence, or continuing his hopeless pursuit of the woman who had stolen his heart. With every fiber of his being, he longed to find Amelia, to hold her once more. Yet the relentless demands of his family and the looming wedding felt like an inescapable noose tightening around him. Choosing to delay the inevitable, Alexander continued his search, holding on to the last shred of hope, even though it felt more impossible with each passing day. 5 years later, drizzling rain fell on the narrow streets of Willow Creek as Alexander Scott stepped out of his sleek luxury car. His crisp suit stood in the stark contrast to the simple surroundings of the town. He was here to attend a small charity event sponsored by his corporation, never imagining that this trip would bring him closer to the woman he had been searching for all these years. Inside the event venue, children were running around, their laughter filling the air. As Alexander's gaze swept over the crowd, it suddenly froze. His heart skipped a beat when he spotted a small boy intently drawing in a corner of the courtyard. The boy had soft brown hair, fair skin, and striking gray-blue eyes, the very same eyes Alexander saw in the mirror every day. Alexander stood frozen, memories flooding back like a tidal wave. Unable to shake the strange feeling in his chest, he approached the boy. "What's your name?" he asked in his deep, gentle voice. The boy looked up, his clear eyes meeting Alexander's, and smiled innocently. "My name is Ethan." The name hit Alexander like a punch. It was the name he had once thought of for his future son. His heart swelled with an inexplicable emotion, an undeniable certainty creeping through him. Before he could ask further, a familiar voice echoed from behind him. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" Alexander froze. "Amelia." She stood there, her long hair now neatly tied up, her face still as gentle as he remembered, though it bore traces of exhaustion. Her eyes, however, sparkled with shock as they locked onto his. In that moment, everything else faded away. Just the two of them, standing amidst the flow of 5 long, painful years. "Amelia!" Alexander's voice trembled, barely escaping his lips. Amelia, on the other hand, was gripped by sheer panic. She instinctively reached for Ethan's hand, pulling him behind her in a protective gesture. "What? What are you doing here?" Amelia's entire world crumbled before her eyes. She had spent every single day trying to stay hidden, every sleepless night convincing herself that he would never find her. And yet, here he was, standing before her, his eyes filled with anguish and frustration. Before she could say anything more, Alexander took a determined step forward, his gaze unwavering. "The boy! He's my son, isn't he?" Amelia took a step back, clutching Ethan's tiny hand tighter, her heart pounding wildly. She couldn't run anymore. "Alexander, please, just leave," she pleaded, her voice trembling. But Alexander was no longer the man he used to be 5 years ago. He was stronger, more resolute. Number, I've been searching for you all these years, and now you're standing here, with our son. Do you really think I can just walk away? Silent tears began to roll down Amelia's cheeks. She turned away, her voice heavy with pain. I didn't want you to be affected. I couldn't let you suffer through the scrutiny, the judgmental stares. I left for your sake. Alexander shook his head, his eyes burning with a mix of sorrow and anger. You never gave me a choice, Amelia. Did you think I wasn't strong enough to protect you? To protect our child? Amelia choked back a sob. I didn't run away just because of you, Alexander. I ran because of me. I can't go back to that world. A world where every mistake is magnified, where I lost everything because of one failure. She lowered her head, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't have the courage to face it again. Alexander gazed at her, his expression filled with deep pain. Every word she spoke felt like a dagger to his heart. He wasn't just hurt because she had hidden their son from him. He was heartbroken by the fear that still consumed her. You can't live in the past forever, Amelia, he said, his voice laced with both anger and desperation. Our son shouldn't have grown up without a father, and I shouldn't have spent the last 5 years feeling so empty. Amelia remained silent. She knew Alexander was right. She knew she had been selfish to leave without giving him an explanation. But how could she return? She didn't want Ethan to be drawn into the calculated world of Alexander's family, nor did she want her son to grow up under the weight of rumors and public scrutiny. I'm sorry, she whispered, but I can't go back to New York. I don't want Ethan to live in that environment. Here, I can be a doctor in my own way, live a simple and safe life. Alexander clenched his fists, his voice dropping to a low, pained tone. Do you really think I'll let you and my son stay away from me forever? No, Amelia. I've already missed too much time, and I won't let that happen again. Ethan, still hiding behind his mother, looked at Alexander with curious and confused eyes. The little boy seemed to sense a strange connection between himself and the man standing before him. Amelia glanced at her son, tears welling up in her eyes. She knew she couldn't keep the truth hidden any longer. He's your son, she finally admitted, revealing the secret she had kept buried for the past 5 years. A wave of emotions crashed over Alexander. He knelt down, his hands trembling as he gently placed them on Ethan's small shoulders. My God. Ethan ... His voice cracked with raw emotion. Ethan hesitated, looking at his mother and then back at the man in front of him, sensing something profound. Who are you? He asked innocently. Alexander smiled, his eyes stinging with unshed tears. I'm your father, Ethan. The boy looked at him with wide eyes, then turned to his mother for confirmation. Amelia gave a small nod, her tears falling silently. Ethan studied Alexander for a long moment before, unexpectedly, reaching out his tiny hand to hold his father's. The touch nearly broke Alexander. That small hand carried everything he had been searching for over the past 5 years. Yet Amelia still maintained her distance. Please, Alexander. Let me decide what's best for our son. Alexander looked at her, his voice gentle but resolute. I want my son to have his father, Amelia, and I want you. I'm not giving up. Neither of them spoke further. Only the cold evening breeze whispered through the trees, carrying with it the weight of their unspoken emotions and the years of longing they had endured. Amelia knew the peaceful life she had built was now on the brink of collapse. And Alexander, he knew he would do whatever it took to reclaim the family he had lost. Are you still following the story? Did it touch your heart? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. The news of Alexander finding Amelia did not take long to reach Eleanor's ears. She wasn't surprised. Instead, she simply smirked, her sharp eyes glinting as she sat in the plush leather chair of her office at Whitmore Enterprises. She had known this day would come, but she wouldn't let Alexander slip away from her life so easily. A phone call was made, and a few hours later, Alexander received a short, chilling message from Eleanor. If you think you can go back to her without consequences, you're wrong. I won't let her sinful past stay buried forever. Alexander gripped his phone tightly, his knuckles turning white. He knew Eleanor well enough to understand that she wouldn't hesitate to follow through on her threat. If Amelia's past, the failed surgery that had haunted her for years, were to be exposed again, it wouldn't just ruin her career. It would shatter the peaceful life she had built for Ethan. That very evening, Alexander found Amelia, his face tense with concern. "Eleanor knows about you and Ethan," he sighed, his eyes clouded with worry. Amelia froze, her heart pounding in her chest. The nightmare she had feared for so long was slowly becoming a reality. "She won't leave us alone," she whispered, her fingers gripping the edge of the table involuntarily. Alexander stepped closer, taking her trembling hand in his. "This time, I won't let you run away. We'll face her together. I will protect you." Amelia took a deep, shaky breath, her mind torn with uncertainty. She knew that running away would only trap her in a life of endless fear. But facing it, did she have the strength to withstand the storm of public scrutiny? After a long pause, she looked straight into Alexander's eyes. In them, she saw unwavering determination, fierce devotion, and above all, love. "All right," she said softly but firmly. "I won't run anymore. I don't want Ethan to have a mother who keeps running away." Her newfound resolve led Amelia to make a bold decision. She registered for the upcoming International Medical Conference in New York, a gathering where some of the most renowned doctors, including those who once judged her, would be present. This time, she wouldn't let her past dictate her future. Alexander supported her decision wholeheartedly. He arranged a professional media team to help her handle the inevitable questions from the press. However, Amelia knew that the real battle would be hers alone. She would have to stand on that stage, face the world, and reclaim her life with her own strength. As the conference day drew near, Amelia prepared herself mentally and emotionally. The fear still lingered, but with Alexander by her side and Ethan as her inspiration, she was ready to confront her demons and prove that she was more than her past mistakes. The day of the conference arrived. Spotlights illuminated the grand stage of the most luxurious hotel in New York. Amelia stood behind the curtains, her palms damp with sweat. She could feel the curious yet judgmental gazes of the audience. The fear that had held her back 5 years ago surged once more, but this time she was no longer alone. Alexander stood in the audience, his encouraging gaze shining with pride. Beside him was Ethan, holding his father's hand, looking at his mother with absolute trust. As Amelia stepped onto the stage, her voice trembled at first but gradually grew stronger. 5 years ago, I failed in a crucial surgery. A highly influential figure passed away, and I became the center of public scrutiny, criticized, condemned, and drowned in shame. The hall fell into silence with all eyes fixed on her. Amelia took a deep breath, her voice filled with sincerity. "But if I had the choice again, I would do everything the same way, because I did everything within my power to save his life. I am not a perfect doctor, but I am a dedicated one." A soft yet sincere applause filled the room. The once judgmental gazes began to soften with understanding. Amelia continued, this time with a gentle smile. "I have let fear control me for too long. Today I stand here to say that I will not run anymore. I will continue the work I love and dedicate myself to helping those in need." The room erupted in applause. Amelia looked down at Alexander and Ethan, both smiling radiantly. She knew she had made the right decision. Immediately after the speech, Alexander made a bold declaration to the media. In front of hundreds of journalists at the Scott Enterprises press conference, he stood with a determined expression. "The engagement between Eleanor Whitmore and me was a business arrangement between our families, but I cannot live a life without love. I hereby declare that this engagement will not take place." Behind the stage, Eleanor stood frozen, her face pale with rage. She approached Alexander, her voice seething with anger through clenched teeth. "You'll pay for this, Alexander. Don't think I'll let this end so easily." Alexander met her gaze unwaveringly. "I need nothing else but Amelia and our son. If you want to fight, then do it, but I will not back down." Eleanor smirked, her eyes filled with cunning malice. "I won't let you and that woman have your happiness so easily." With a cold glare, she turned and walked away, leaving behind a tense atmosphere. But Alexander knew that this time, He wouldn't let anyone interfere with his happiness again. That evening, Alexander returned to the apartment where Amelia and Ethan were waiting. When he opened the door, he saw Amelia sitting by the window, gazing out at the city lights twinkling in the distance. He walked over and embraced her from behind, his voice warm and reassuring. "We've made it through, Amelia. Nothing can stand in our way now." Amelia smiled softly, placing her hand over his. "I'm still not used to this feeling of being loved and protected by you." Alexander turned her gently to face him, looking into her eyes with unwavering sincerity. "I lost you once, Amelia. I will never lose you again." They kissed, a sweet, lingering kiss that mended the years of pain and separation. In that moment, Amelia knew she had finally found where she truly belonged. From across the room, Ethan watched with a bright smile, happy to see his parents together. The future would still bring challenges, but now Amelia and Alexander knew they could face anything, together. Autumn had painted New York City in warm golden hues, but for Alexander and Amelia, the warmth came not only from the season, but from the love and reunion of their family. After years of struggle, Amelia decided to stay in New York and continue her medical career. Not as a way to escape, but to face her true passion. Together, she and Alexander founded the Hope Care Foundation, focusing on providing free healthcare services to underprivileged communities. It was a place where Amelia could pursue her passion without the pressures of media scrutiny or societal expectations. Ethan, their son, had grown into a bright and lively young boy, living happily with his parents. Alexander, once consumed by high-stakes business deals and relentless meetings, now found true meaning in life, not in wealth or power, but in the quiet evenings spent with his family. Under the twinkling lights of a family gathering at the Scott Mansion, Alexander and Amelia walked in hand, while Ethan excitedly ran around them. This time, Amelia's presence no longer drew whispers or judgmental glances from the Scott family. She had proven her worth, not through wealth or status, but through her strength, intelligence, and compassion. Standing quietly in the corner was Alexander's mother, who had once vehemently opposed their relationship. She watched the small family with a thoughtful expression, remembering the days when she believed only Eleanor was suitable for her son. But tonight, as she saw Amelia tenderly caring for Ethan and witnessed the genuine happiness in Alexander's eyes, she realized how wrong she had been. Slowly, she approached Amelia, her usually stern eyes now softened with warmth. "Amelia," she said gently, "I once thought you didn't belong in this family, but today I realize that no one could bring Alexander happiness the way you do. Thank you for staying, for giving my son a real family." Amelia was taken aback, her eyes glistening with emotion. She reached out and held Victoria's hand, whispering, "Thank you for giving me the chance to prove that love is not about wealth or status, but about understanding and trust." Alexander stood nearby, his heart swelling with pride as he watched the two most important women in his life finally finding harmony. After the party, Alexander led Amelia to the mansion's garden, where soft candlelight flickered amidst the scent of her favorite flowers. Holding her hand tightly, his eyes shone with sincerity. "Amelia," he began, his voice tender, "for years I searched for you, not just the woman I love, but the one who made me realize the most important thing in life, family." He dropped to one knee and pulled out a small velvet box, revealing a simple yet elegant ring that symbolized his unwavering love for her. "Will you stay by my side forever?" Overwhelmed with emotion, Amelia nodded silently, extending her hand toward him. Alexander slid the ring onto her finger, pressing a gentle kiss to the back of her hand. A sacred vow. Applause erupted behind them. Victoria and Ethan stood watching, their eyes filled with joy. Ethan cheered, "Mom, you're finally Dad's bride." Laughter and tears of happiness filled the air as the family embraced tightly, as if they had never been apart. They held a simple yet meaningful wedding ceremony at the chapel of the charity hospital they had built together. The space was adorned with white flowers and flickering candles, creating a warm and intimate atmosphere. Amelia wore an elegant, modest wedding dress that radiated both gentleness and strength. Alexander stood at the end of the aisle, his heart overflowing with happiness as he watched Amelia walk toward him. The vows echoed through the sacred space filled with love and solemnity. I promise to always love you, protect you and our little family, no matter what challenges lie ahead. I promise to build a life filled with love, to walk beside you on every journey. As Alexander gently placed a kiss on Amelia's lips, the room erupted in applause. But no one was happier than Ethan, standing proudly between his parents, his little heart bursting with joy. After the wedding, Amelia and Alexander continued their dedication to charity work, expanding their hospitals and healthcare centers for the underprivileged. Amelia no longer feared her past. She became an admired doctor whose story inspired many with her resilience and compassion. Alexander found a perfect balance between work and family. He realized that true fulfillment did not lie in business achievements alone, but in the precious moments spent with his wife and son. Late at night, in their cozy home, Amelia leaned against Alexander, while Ethan slept peacefully between them. Alexander whispered softly, "We have everything we need now, don't we?" Amelia smiled, squeezing his hand tightly. "Yes, because in the end, we found each other." Amelia and Alexander's story is a testament to true love and the courage to overcome challenges. True love is not just about emotions, but about bravery and trust. To achieve happiness, sometimes we must face our past instead of running from it. No matter what unexpected turns life takes, family and love will always be the ultimate destination. Forgiveness, perseverance, and kindness are the keys to overcoming every challenge. And when we find the one we truly belong to, we realize it is the greatest gift of all. The city lights shimmered like dreams coming true, and in their small home, a family continued to write their love story, one filled with struggles, but overflowing with happiness. Thank you for following our story. Did this story touch your heart? Leave a comment below. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.